I've done this 150 times, the same talk. So just let me know when we're ready to go.
All right, we're going live on YouTube. So I want to go ahead and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Certainly, I'd like to introduce everyone to Evan Weiner. He's been here before. He was here in October, and we talked about baseball. But tonight, we'll be talking about the penultimate event in the National Football League, the Super Bowl. And certainly, many of you know that in a few weeks, we'll be watching it on television, knock on wood, if COVID doesn't catch it first. But tonight, Evan will take us through the history of the big game and certainly some of his experiences with it. So I'll go ahead and pass it on to you, Evan, and take it away, sir.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan, and hello, everybody. My name is Evan Weiner, and you're seeing me live today, and that's a version of me back in 1982 talking to Phil Simms, who was with the New York Giants then and trying to establish himself as the quarterback over Scott Brunner, if you might remember those days. That's at Pace University over in Pleasantville, in New York, in Westchester County. And we think that's Don Marcus, who was the guy in the blue shirt, who is also doing this interview, which Phil doesn't look like he's too into. I think we interrupted him eating a banana, but I've talked to him over the years about that. And he said, look, if I have a choice of eating a banana or talking to you, the banana is going to win. Anyway, Phil was an MVP of the Super Bowl, the 1987 game, technically the 1986 season, when the Giants beat Denver, and he was the MVP of the Super Bowl of that game. The Super Bowl is more than a game. It's a cultural event. It's also a high security risk in terms of assessment and making sure it's secure. The Super Bowl was created by the United States Congress. They passed legislation which allowed the merger of the American Football League and the National Football League that skirted antitrust laws. The merger was tacked on to an anti-inflation bill. Anti-inflation. Tell me what senator, what member of the House of Representatives is going to vote for inflation? Nobody. So it was really easy to get this merger through Congress. Well, it wasn't that easy to get through Congress. It was easy to tack it on to the anti-inflation bill. And it was signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson on November 8th, 1966. I alluded to the security. The United States Secret Service is the lead agency in securing the Super Bowl. Now, because the game last year was in South Florida, this year it's Tampa, security has been in Florida for the past 2.5 years. Now, generally, security starts a year and a half before the event to see what's going on, what they need, the assessment, and all that other stuff this year in Tampa. It is a Tier 1 level event. The Super Bowl is a special events assessment rating level 1 event. There are 50 agencies who have been working for a year and a half, and like I said, 2.5 years in Florida because the game was there last year, involved in making sure the event is secure. There is no word on how much it costs taxpayers to provide security. The NFL, the owners do not dip into their pockets, as you will find out how many times they don't dip into their pockets, and they aren't paying any money to help secure the event. Additionally, the FBI, FEMA, TSA, Customs and Border Patrol, local police, state police, county police, all part of the security team of any Super Bowl. But the Super Bowl, well, as late as 1965, nobody ever thought of the Super Bowl. Now, the 1965 American Football League All Star Game probably is the starting point for the creation of the Super Bowl. The National Football League had just expanded to a 15th team in Atlanta. The American Football League said, hey, we need to expand as well, and we're looking for a 9th city, and they pretty much settled on New Orleans. You had a big population in those days, and you weren't as dependent on corporate support or taxpayer money as the Saints are today. The New Orleans Saints franchise is dependent on government money to keep them going because there's not much corporate assistance in New Orleans. Anyway, the American Football League decides New Orleans, good place for a 9th team. And let's dip our toe in the water. Let's schedule the All Star Game now in January of 1965. And Jim Crow should be over because Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law July 7th, 1964. So, and they want a franchise. Dave Dixon wants a franchise, and they're going to welcome us with open arms. So it's a slam dunk. Let's go to New Orleans. Well, you know what the poet said, I think it was Robbie Burns who said the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Well, let's take a look at this. Let's quick background and the formation of the Super Bowl and all of these pieces put together, you form the Super Bowl. Civil Rights Act of 1964, Jim Crow, New Orleans, a players boycott. Senator Russell Long, Democratic senator, fifth most powerful senator during the 1966 legislative session, Democrat from Louisiana. Hale Boggs, who was Cokie Roberts' father, was a powerful representative, also from Louisiana. And then there was Emanuel Seller, who probably preceded the Borscht Belt in the Catskills. Emanuel Seller, I think, was first elected during the War of 1812. Actually, he was elected 1920. And so he had an awful lot of sway in the House, and he's important in the design and creation of the Super Bowl. Now, if you remember 7 years ago, Los Angeles Clippers owner Donald Sterling told his mistress that she shouldn't bring black guys to basketball games. He was embarrassed about it. Donald Sterling had a history of being a racist owner of the San Diego and Los Angeles Clippers, and it finally caught up to him because TMZ got a hold of that audio and played it on TMZ. And the Los Angeles Clippers players were, they were just really upset, extremely upset, and threatened to boycott playing in the playoffs unless the NBA removed Donald Sterling. Well, the audio comes out, the players are irate, the advertisers and the sponsors are saying they're pulling the plug on sponsoring Clippers games. And the NBA basically throws Sterling out, and they get a new owner eventually. And disaster as far as players on the court, well, that was averted. So Ron Mix is a guy I've known for a long time. Played with the San Diego Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers in 1960, San Diego from 61 to about 70, 71, and then finished up with the Oakland Raiders. And he was part of the American Football League All Star Game. He's a lawyer by trade. He's still a pretty sharp guy. And I asked him about are there any parallels between what happened with Donald Sterling and what happened in New Orleans? And he said yes and no. The parallel is we struck, they threatened to strike. The other was there was one guy running his mouth, whereas our guys were running into all kind of trouble through no fault of their own in New Orleans. So we were aware that New Orleans was hosting the game to demonstrate to the American Football League and the National Football League that they, New Orleans, could support the football franchise. The last thing we wanted to do was assist them in demonstrating they could support a franchise. A boycott was the only alternative for the players. I know I put the horse in front of the cart, but let's now back up. This isn't the first time a boycott was threatened by somebody related to football from the American Football League in New Orleans. Walter Beach probably had the first 1960s sports boycott, or tried to do so. He was a defensive back with the Boston Patriots in the American Football League, and the Boston Patriots were going down to New Orleans to play a preseason game, and Walter Beach informed his owner, Billy Sullivan, that he didn't want any of those Green Book rules. You probably have the Green Book video in the library there. So no Green Book rules. I want to be with my teammates. I want to stay at the same hotel as my teammates. I want to eat in the same restaurant as my teammates. I want to take the same bus as my teammates. I don't want to go down to the other side of town where Negro players of those days would stay in the South. Walter Beach was fired by the Boston Patriots in 1961 in preseason, labeled as a troublemaker because he was organizing a protest among the black players against segregation, Green Book rules, segregation living conditions during the team's road trip to New Orleans in the summer of 1961. Beach was fired. He would catch on with the Cleveland Browns, and he would play with the Cleveland Browns NFL championship team in 1964. He was also one of the athletes that Jim Brown recruited in 1968 in something called the Cleveland Summit, where they talked to Muhammad Ali and tried to find out if Ali was legit or not in opposing the Vietnam War, and if he really was a conscientious objector. Walter was there, Palabine, Walt Flea Roberts, who was on the Cleveland team that went to Washington in the late 1960s, and others were there, and they interviewed Ali, and they thought he was legit, and they decided to help him out after his boxing license and title were stripped for refusing induction into the armed forces without due process. The New York State Athletic Commission stripped his license, and they thought he was legit. So Walter Beach was involved with that as well. He's in the NFL by the time that the New Orleans problems begin. Cookie Gilchrist played with the Buffalo Bills. And Cookie Gilchrist was able to get a cab into New Orleans because he was with Jack Kemp, the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, also the executive director of the American Football League Players Association. And Cookie starts hearing stories about what's going on. Now, he didn't have to wait for a cab for 3.5 hours, as his black teammates did. See, in New Orleans, when the players flew in, everybody was supposed to get a cab. But the old Jim Crow law was this: a black person could get into a cab as long as he had or she had a white person with her. So Cookie was able to get a ride. The other players were at the airport and they weren't able to get rides. Kemp started talking to his teammates at the airport when it used to cost a thin dime. Remember that? 10 cents to put in the phone booth? One thin dime. And he starts making calls to Bud Adams, the owner of the Houston Oilers, saying, our guys are still stuck at the airport. Adams calls the governor of Louisiana, the mayor of New Orleans, and they send the colored cabs out to get the colored players. Send me a colored cab. So players get in, they go to the Hotel Roosevelt, they go to the Fontainebleau Hotel, and they decide to hit the town. It's New Orleans. You go to Bourbon Street, right? You don't go to Royal Street per se, because that is where the art galleries are and all that. But Bourbon Street, that's where you go. And Ernie Ladd, who was 6'9", 315 pounds. He was a defensive lineman with the San Diego Chargers, along with another defensive lineman, Earl Faison, decide they want to enjoy themselves on Bourbon Street. So they walk into a bar, and there was a bouncer, maybe 5'8", 5'9" inches tall, and says, I wouldn't go in here if I were you. Now, Ladd went to Grambling University, which was in Louisiana, and Ladd says, I'm going in. You know, he's a big guy. Earl Faison's a big guy. And the guy said, no. You don't seem to understand. If I were you, I wouldn't go in. And they go in. And this guy takes out a gun and says, you understand, we don't want you in here. They're gone. So all these guys with all the stories converge in the Roosevelt Hotel and start to talk. New Orleans leaders promised them the city was going to welcome them. 22 black players, open arms. Segregation, gone. Jim Crow, thing of the past. And the city desperately wants a professional football team. Dave Dixon was one of the business leaders who basically said, we want in. Have the All Star Game in Tulane Stadium. Well, the AFL at that time was the only league to truly embrace African-American athletes as an equal on the field with white players. NFL scouts went to watch players from big-time schools, big-time conferences. The AFL, they went looking for players with a different background. Grambling University in Louisiana, Bethune-Cookman in Florida, Prairie View in Texas, Texas A&I, Morgan State in Baltimore, Maryland. That's where they found players, and they found really, really good players. And the NFL in those days, in the early 1960s, was still sticking to a quota of black players. Or as Irv Cross has told me, the former CBS TV NFL Today host, or one of the hosts on the show, or panelists. And we were talking about this because I wanted to check in on him after COVID started back in April and May. And we were talking about this. And he said, yep, 4 players per team. My first team, Philadelphia, and me and Tim Brown and Clarence Peaks. And there was another guy, I forgot his name right now, and that was it. We have 4 guys. And he said, all the rest of the team, 4 guys. AFL, they didn't care. They wanted players. Ironically, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 destroyed the black college programs, as the best players can now attend Alabama or Mississippi, Ole Miss, Louisiana State, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina. So Eddie Robinson in Grambling lost his best players because they could go play for Bear Bryant and Alabama. Abner Haynes. Abner lives in Dallas. I've known Abner for a really long time, and I'm going to give you a story about New Orleans and abuse. Now, Abner was told by his owner, that sounds bad, but the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs, Lamar Hunt. And Lamar, he was the captain of the Dallas Texans in 1961-62, the team that moved to Kansas City and today is the Chiefs. And Lamar Hunt said to Abner, name, rank, and serial number. When you get to New Orleans, just your name, Abner Haynes, running back, Kansas City Chiefs, member of the American Football League All Star team. That's all you need to say. So Abner is telling the story about he and David Grayson. They get into, they fly from Kansas City to New Orleans as part of the team. And he and David Grayson are waiting for a cab. Eventually, they get a cab and they get to the Hotel Roosevelt. And they check in and everything's cool checking in and no problem. Then they go to the elevator. And the elevator is one of those old style elevators that you might have seen as a kid at Macy's or some other places. And it was one of those jobs where the doors flung open and there was a fence and somebody sitting in the stool and controlling the elevator using a handle back and forth. And the elevator stops in the ground floor, and there is David Grayson, there's Abner Haynes, and there was an elderly woman, an elderly white woman, as Abner told me. And she said, hey, monkeys, what are you doing here? Abner Haynes, running back, Kansas City Chiefs, American Football League All-Star team. David Grayson, defensive back, Kansas City Chiefs, American Football League All-Stars. They had a woman, this is Abner's quote, they had a woman operating the elevator and she said, you monkeys, come on in, get to the back. Finally, we had about 10 or 12 guys in my room. We're talking sensibly. We're going to stay together. This was just another test. And it was a test of whether or not they could stand up to the American Football League owners. They're putting their careers on the line, literally. We have no leverage. We weren't playing for money, but we were playing for progress. Football players took the lead. In a sense, yeah, they did take the lead in sports. You could talk about Thea Gibson, maybe in tennis, or Jackie Robinson. But in terms of protests, Walter Beach was the first guy who protested in New Orleans in 1961. And these guys are about ready to protest. Places like Atlanta, New Orleans, Miami were death holes. Dave Grayson could get a drink at the bar. Our white teammates in New Orleans were there for us. And one of them, Jack Kemp. That's a picture of me and Jack Kemp back in 1979, 42 years ago, when I had hair. And Jack Kemp, years later, I took that picture to show Jack. And Jack said, what happened to your hair? And I said, what happened to your wig? That's what happened to his wig. That was him and my son at the Arizona Biltmore Hotel in 2003, my son being 17 years old. And Jack said, oh, let's go retire to the bar and get a drink. But Jackie's underage. I said, let's go to the bar. We'll get a drink. Jack, he's 17. It's a religious ceremony. What do you want? And Jack Kemp gave my son, as far as I know, his first drink at a bar. But Jack was president of the American Football League Players Association back in 1965. He was also a political operative. He worked for the Barry Goldwater campaign during the 1964 presidential run. And so he is going to support whatever the 22 African-American players come up with. So he is putting his career not only on the line as a football player, if they boycott, but also as a politician, because he gave the go-ahead. You're okay. We're going to support you if you go ahead and boycott. Haynes said one of the things we, the AFL, needed was the unity of the white and black players for our league. Abner was the first black player to play college football on a regular basis in Texas with North Texas University back in 1956. Just aside there. When the white players, Jack Kemp, Jerry Mays, who is our Kansas City defensive leader, and 4 or 5 other guys heard about what was happening, their character showed, and my teammates were looking after me. The decision, we're not playing in New Orleans. And it would have major fallouts, major fallout, and some consequences. The players put their necks on the line, and the players won. Both the white players and the black players, they won. Their careers continued. But New Orleans was on the outside looking in. They did not get the team as expected during the AFL All Star Game, because there was no AFL All Star Game in New Orleans. Eventually, New Orleans would become a political pawn, and the Super Bowl would rise out of the ashes of the New Orleans boycott. The American Football League and the National Football League announced a merger plan on June 8th, 1966, after Lamar Hunt, the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs, and Texas E. Schramm. Are there any Giants fans in here or Eagles fans in here? I hate to bring this up because Texas ran the Dallas Cowboys, and you know, he did a lot of boasting as well, but he came up with the name America's Team for the Cowboys after the Kennedy assassination to help try to bring back Dallas's image and reputation after the Kennedy assassination. So Hunt and Tex met under the Lone Ranger statue at Love Field, the place where John F. Kennedy's body flew from Dallas to Washington that November 22nd, Love Field. And that's where they came up with the agreement. The two entities, though, could not become one without an antitrust exemption from Congress. And there's the guy right there, Elvin Pete Rozelle. Alvin Roy Pete Rozelle, as Howard Cosell would say. That is me and him, 1986 USFL NFL antitrust trial. Somebody must have said something funny because we're both smiling and we could be laughing. But Pete is the guy. He's the commissioner of the National Football League, has been the commissioner of the National Football League since 1960, and he is told, you get the merger through Congress, and there may be a couple people that may block you. Your job is to complete, your mission is to complete the merger. Now, by 1966, Rozelle had been an old hand on Capitol Hill. He was there in 1961 when he had to deal with the Brooklyn Democrat Emanuel Seller in an attempt to get a limited antitrust exemption so the National Football League could bundle its 14 teams, or 14 teams in the National Football League in 1961, could bundle the 14 teams as one and sell it to a television network, just like Lamar Hunt's American Football League did, selling its 8 franchises to ABC. But that flew under the radar. The NFL had been in litigation for a long time, at this point about 10 years, over the TV blackout and other things as far as antitrust go, basically with TV. So they wanted to clear it with Alan Grimm, the judge that was handling the blackout case. He said, nope, it's not going to pass the smell test. So Rozelle had to go to Congress, and Emanuel Seller did him a solid favor and said, sure, went through the House in 2 days. Estes Kiefhauer, the senator from Tennessee, goes through the Senate in a day, and John F. Kennedy signs it into law on September 30th. 1961, the Sports Broadcast Act, which allowed the NFL to bundle its 14 franchises, also the NBA, its 8 teams, and the NHL, its 6 teams, to sell a package of games to a TV network and not worry about antitrust laws. That law would help propel the NFL into a different orbit. And there is Russell Long to the left and Lyndon Johnson to the right. And I'm not sure they're talking about getting a team for New Orleans then. Yeah, you never know with LBJ what he's talking about. But anyway, that's Long and LBJ. Neither the Louisiana Democrat Senator, Russell Long, 5th most powerful guy in the Senate at that point, who was the Senate Majority Whip and chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, nor Congressman Hale Boggs were very excited about the planned football merger. Their point was no team in New Orleans. Well, if there's no team in New Orleans, what's the big deal? No big deal. We don't care about this. If we had a team, maybe we'd care about this, but Mr. Rozelle, sir, it's not going to help us. And of course, Longwood could bring with him another senator from not only Louisiana to challenge this, but from Mississippi, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama. So he could do all that, and those areas don't have teams anyway. There's no team in Oklahoma, no team in Arkansas, no team in Tennessee, Alabama, or Mississippi. But it would be helpful to get the support you need from Long if you have a team. Boggs, same thing with the Congress, with the House members in the South. So Rozelle's got to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to get a team and satisfy these guys. Well, another problem emerges, and they begin to figure out, well, we could start moving teams around and we'll still stay at 24 because we want 24 teams in 24 different cities. There's an extra team in New York, and there's an extra team in the San Francisco Bay Area, the Oakland Raiders. So let's start thinking about this, and let's see if this proposal will fly. Let's move the New York Jets and Joe Namath. Hey, he's box office, right? People like him. He's in commercials. He may want a career as an actor in Hollywood. So we can move them to Los Angeles. We'll take the Los Angeles Rams franchise. We'll move it to San Diego to replace the AFL Chargers. They'll be happy to get an NFL team. And New Orleans wanted an AFL team at one point. And Baron Hilton's the owner, so he might take his San Diego Chargers to New Orleans because he's got business interests in New Orleans. And as far as Oakland, well, we'll figure this out. We'll ship them to either Seattle or Portland. But Emmanuel Seller didn't necessarily think that this was all a good idea because, he's in Brooklyn, right? He's in Brooklyn, 450,000 or so, whatever the number is that you have. That was that number way back when in your district. And his district in Brooklyn abuts Queens, and the Jets play in Queens. And there are a lot of people in Brooklyn who probably go to Shea Stadium to see the Mets, or to watch the Mets when the Dodgers come to town, because in those days they still did that because Sandy Koufax was still a Dodger from the Brooklyn days. So they take the subway, they'll get a subway to the 7 and go to Shea Stadium, or they'll figure out a way with the Long Island Railroad, or they'll drive. Huge parking lot at Shea Stadium. This might upset some of my constituents. So Seller says, no. All the teams are going to stay in place. All the teams are going to stay in place, which means they have to find another plan for New Orleans. And they do. By the way, in Seller's case, they had to stay in place until 1970, which would be the first year of the merger. And any team that was playing in a stadium with less than 50,000 seats could move. The only one that threatened to move because of that was Minnesota, because they played at the Met, which had less than 50,000 seats. Screw that. Fire Truck Crew 2019 Hot Nuts. I was at Mardi Gras 2 years ago, and I saw this guy, and he was complaining about the Saints. He thought getting jobbed on a pass interference play that prevented them from going to the 2019 Super Bowl. Screw that. New Orleans. So There wasn't a screw that for New Orleans moment. Rozelle goes to his owner and said, listen, if we got to give them a team, give them a team. Rozelle initially said there wasn't enough talent for 24 teams, but give them a team. We'll get this done. It'll be done. We'll get it over with. And the reasons for the merger, simple. The owners didn't want to pay escalating salaries. Frank Ryan in 1964 was making $13,000 a year as the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. NBC gave the AFL $35 million over 5 years, $7 million a year, which was a lot of money back in 1965. And David Sarnoff, who founded NBC in 1926 and actually made a radio career because he was the guy who was sending out the SOSs or receiving the SOSs from the Titanic and sending them out to family members, live and dead. And he figured out radio from there. But Sarnoff gave them money, and Sonny Werblin started spending money, as did other AFL owners. $427,000 over 3 years went to Joe Namath to play with the New York Jets. So the salaries escalating, and the owner said, that's it, we fold, let's be one, and clamp down the salaries. Rozelle and the NFL relented, worked out a deal with Boggs that included placing a team in New Orleans. Congress said yes to the merger, and the NFL said, as soon as you say yes, we will give New Orleans a team 10 days later. It was a rider on an anti-inflation bill, came on October 21st, 1966. But 10 days out is Halloween, and the NFL said, no, that's not really a good day to launch a team. But the next day is All Saints Day. Let's launch a team in New Orleans on All Saints Day, the New Orleans Saints. And there is Hale Boggs, Cookie Roberts' father. The NFL gives New Orleans the franchise November 1st, 1966. Johnson signs the bill into law on November 8th. And if you want to see the pen, the very pen that created the Super Bowl, you could go do so by going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. The Public Law of 89-800, the Suspension of Credit Act, which carried a rider approving the merger of the National Football League and the American Football League. It's all about money also. NFL owners made out pretty well. Each owner got almost $500,000 from the Saints owner, John Mecum. Additionally, Wellington Mara and Tim Mara over with the New York Giants got $10 million from the New York Jets ownership, because the New York Jets ownership invaded the New York territory. Actually, it was Harry Wismer, not Sonny Werblin, when he started the New York Titans in 1960. And the Oakland Raiders had to give $8 million to the San Francisco 49ers for invading the San Francisco Bay Area market. The AFL, the final vote to merge was 7-2. David, Sonny, as in Money Werblin, New York Jets said no to the merger, as did the owners of the Oakland Raiders. But they did, and created this new entity. The American Football League also agreed to pay the NFL $7.5 million it received from a Cincinnati expansion franchise fee in 1968. So if you add it all up, NFL owners probably got $1 million each for the merger and the extra teams. Wellington Mara and Tim Mara got $11 million, and the people who own the San Francisco 49ers, $9 million. I was going to do a book. I did a book on football. It's an ebook now called The Coal Miners' Game, and I was tucked out of the original title, which would have been Cash on the Barrelhead, because that's all the NFL cares about, is cash on the barrelhead. Now, here's a question for you. Did Vince Lombardi ever win the Super Bowl? Yes or no? You could put that in your in the chat box if you want. But did he ever win the Super Bowl? Yes or no? I will give you that answer in a couple of minutes. Mickey Mouse versus the NFL. Green Bay beat Dallas in the NFL championship game and advanced to the American Football League, National Football League World Championship game on January 15th, 1967 in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. The Green Bay coach, Vince Lombardi, didn't want to play in the game. His team won the NFL championship. And why would he want to play a team from the AFL? That's a Mickey Mouse league. And what I never understood this at all. When I was growing up as a kid into the 1980s, I would hear people referring to something that was second or third or fourth rate as a Mickey Mouse thing. A Mickey Mouse thing. I never understood that because do you know how much that rodent is worth? That rodent is worth a lot of money, $66 billion about 15 years ago when Comcast tried a hostile takeover of Disney. So that rodent is worth billions upon billions of dollars. And I never got the reference to something that's rinky-dink being a Mickey Mouse thing. And Lombardi said it was a Mickey Mouse league. Lots of empty seats for the first game. There is Len Dawson talking to his team in a huddle against the Green Bay Packers. He's there, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are losing at this point 28-10. The attendance there, 63,036, 33,000 empty seats in the Los Angeles Coliseum, give or take a few thousand. The game, the ticket price is $12, $10, and $6. You know, even for inflation today, the top ticket would be $35. It's not $5,706 the way somebody formulated it today. It was the last time a Super Bowl, or more appropriately, the American Football League, National Football League World Championship game was not a sellout. Vince Lombardi, the Green Bay Packers, they're playing for the pride of CBS. Oh yeah, they're playing for the pride of CBS. They're playing for the pride of Walter Cronkite. They're playing for the pride of Ed Sullivan. They're playing for the pride of Red Skelton, Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, Gunsmoke, and Miss Kitty. You're playing for the pride of Miss Kitty. Lucy, you're playing for the pride of Lucy. And Petticoat Junction, which in TV history is a significant show. Bet you didn't know it, but it's the first show where a woman runs a business and is the breadwinner of the household. Kate Bradley on Petticoat Junction, Hooterville. Also Green Acres. They were playing for the pride of Green Acres as well. Mickey Mouse 2. First game played January 15th, 1967. That was just 26 days after the final I's were dotted and the T's were crossed in the merger of the National Football League, American Football League. CBS and NBC televised it using the same television feed, but with different announcers. Fred Gifford was one of the CBS announcers and different advertisers. Paley, the CBS chairman, leaned on Lombardi. He was coaching for CBS Pride, and he's defending Miss Kitty. Unfortunately, there is no complete tape of that game, the first game. There is a compilation put together where you can see every play in the game, but a lot of that came from NFL Films and from sources with videotape. The NFL put out a $10 million reward for the complete game a number of years ago, hoping that, well, they sent the game out to the armed forces. Maybe somebody snuck it back from Vietnam or Korea, South Korea or Germany or wherever else American troops were based. But they looked and they looked and they looked, and there is no complete game. There's just, it's not there. They couldn't even get pieces of the game that they needed to patch it together. Reasons why the game wasn't kept, well, you know, it's a football game. It's no big deal. The tapes were expensive, although you figure they paid $9.5 million for that game, that they could get $200 tapes and keeping them. And then keeping them was a problem because they were big. They were big tapes, 2 inches or so. That's why you don't see very many game shows of the 1960s around. And you see shows from the 1960s that were filmed, but not too many on videotape, unless they kept the tape, which Gleason did, Ed Sullivan did. So there is no complete tape of this game with the announcers, Ray Scott being the announcer for the NFL, and I'm drawing a blank on Kurt Gowdy's name, Kurt Gowdy for the American Football League. Jared Kramer just made it to the Hall of Fame. He was a guard with the Green Bay Packers, and he told me this story in 1988. I was talking to Frank Gifford, and he mentioned he announced the first Super Bowl. Gifford said he was fairly cool, fairly calm, relaxed, went over to put his arm on Vince Lombardi's shoulder, and Lombardi was shaking like a leaf. Lombardi coached the New York Giants in the 1950s. He was the offensive coordinator, and his favorite player of all time was Frank Gifford. Gifford said, "That really made me nervous." Gifford, of course, was the CBS announcer, represented the NFL, and the Lombardi was playing for his pride. Money, 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 money. Boom, boom, boom. NBC. This program is brought to you in color by NBC. CBS and NBC charged $42,000 for a 30-second commercial. This year, it's about $5.6 million. The two networks paid $9.5 million to televise the game. The leagues couldn't agree on which ball to use. When Green Bay was on offense, they used the Wilson Duke football, named after Wellington Mara, the Giants owner, the Duke of Wellington. When Kansas City had the ball, they used the AFL-sanctioned Spalding J5V. It was more than just a game. It was the Ford Motor Company against the Chrysler Motor Company. Ford, NFL sponsor. Ford also owned the Detroit Lions football team. Chrysler was the AFL sponsor and put a lot of money into the American Football League in advertising on NBC. It was CBS versus NBC. David Sarnoff was really upset with CBS a number of occasions over the years. He lost Jack Benny on radio to CBS, and Benny took with him Burns and Allen and a whole bunch of other people over to CBS. Fred Allen stayed over at NBC. NBC also lost the contracts or potential contracts to the NFL in 1962 and 1964. So no love lost there. It was NFL establishment sports writers like Tex Maul of Sports Illustrated against Kurt Gowdy, the AFL NBC announcer. It just wasn't a game. But that would subside over the years. And here we go back to Tex Schramm telling me another one. And he tells me this. The Super Bowl kind of put the icing on the cake, and the interest in the National Football League kept rolling until it was the most popular spectator sport in the United States. Well, Tex is right. It became the most popular spectator sport in the United States, but didn't become the most popular spectator sport in the United States because of the Super Bowl. It became the most popular spectator sport on its own in 1965. The Super Bowl was played on January 15th, 1967, at that place, the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Some people, it wasn't some people, it was one person, Al Davis, the Oakland Raiders general managing partner at this point, 1968. So some people began calling the American Football League, National Football League World Championship game the Super Bowl in 1968. Davis's team played Green Bay in 1968 in Miami. Pete Rozelle told me no one could think of a proper name. Rozelle also said he thought Lamar Hunt's idea of calling it the Super Bowl was corny. And I looked at Rozelle and I said, corny? Yeah, he said, yeah, we use words like that growing up. Corny, super duper, razzle dazzle, give him the old razzle dazzle. And he said that he thought it was a stupid name, but nobody could think of anything better. In July of 1966, July 25th, a letter to the NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle from Lamar Hunt, the owner and founder of the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs and founder of the American Football League. I have kiddingly called it the Super Bowl, which obviously can be improved upon. I guess Hunt also grew up with the razzle-dazzle, super-duper, corny lingo in the language. I was talking to Lamar about that one day. I said, so how'd you come up with the name? He said it was one of the spur-of-the-moment things. No one ever said, what are we going to call it? It was just one of the things that just came out of the mouth. Wasn't too inspired. I may differ with Lamar here because something I liked was something his kids liked that may have inspired him. It was called the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl, I was 8 years old when it came out in 1964, and you threw that against the wall, and the ball would go that way, and go that way, and go that way, and go that way, and go that way. You'd be constantly running for the ball. Hunt was home in Dallas one day. He's watching his children, Clark, who now owns the Kansas City Chiefs. He's watching his children play with the ball when he first uttered those famous words, Super Bowl. They each had a super ball that my wife had given to them, and they're always talking about them. And I know exactly why, because we love that ball. It was the greatest thing. Mine was blue. And I just used the expression Super Bowl. It was an accidental thing. And there it is. That was the inspiration for the name Super Bowl, put out by Whammo. And man, was that a great toy? And it was pretty cheap. It was like 39 cents back in 1965. So what happened to the Super Bowl? Well, as far as the Whammo Super Bowl, shelf life was considerably less than the Super Bowl. Oh, it was a toy made out of Zectron. The chemical engineer, Norman Stingley, found that when formed at 5,000 pounds of pressure, Zectron becomes uncontrollably bouncy. Whammo began producing that ball, made of Zectron in 1964. Shh, double top secret, double top secret. After only a few years, the double top secret formula for Zectron was copied by Whammo's competitors, and the Super Bowl floundered. It was a different generation. That's what I say. The Super Bowl was out of production by 1976. Joe Namath would change culture, not only change football culture and football history, but he changed American culture. That is me on the right. Boy, I had hair then. Jack Kemp was right. And my buddy Bruce Morton on the left, then of ABC Sports. Weeb Eubank, the coach of the New York Jets in 1968, is behind Joe, sitting there with the glasses. And this is the Wingfoot Golf Club in Mamaroneck, New York. And there was a 20th party celebration of the Jets winning the 1968 season, but 1969 Super Bowl III. And it was more than a game. It was a happening. But it might not have been a happening if Joe Namath wasn't there. Now, the biggest loser that day in Miami, when Joe Namath changed football history and the culture, was a guy by the name of Lou Michaels, number 79, the left-footed kicker of the Baltimore Colts, whose brother, Walt, was the defensive coordinator with the New York Jets. And the Michaels brothers looked alike. Walt was a little older, but they looked alike. So Lou Michaels remembers, because when history is written by the victors, it's seldom written by the losers. But I never paid much attention to history. So I'm talking to Lou Michaels one day. And I said, so what happened on January 5th? Where were you on January 5th, 1969? They were in a bar in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I must say, Joe was a very cocky individual. I never expected that from Joe. When he walked into the place, he had a fur coat on. I will never forget a fur coat in Miami. Michaels had mentioned that Namath and Jim Hudson, his teammate with the New York Jets, walked in, that Joe spotted Lou and walked out and came back in. And he points over to me. Instead of saying, hi, I'm Joe Namath, I thought he was going to introduce himself and say hello. He points over to me and says, we're going to kick the out of you, and I'm going to do it. It was a Muhammad Ali style entrance, a wrestling style entrance. Set the tone of the evening. Eventually, Joe would pay for the drinks, but he basically told whoever was there from the Baltimore Colts, we're going to beat you on Sunday. And he had said that all week. And, I bet you a couple of those people leaning over talking to Joe probably spent some time in the Borscht Belt. Look, Goivy, it's him. It's really him. It's Joe. Oh, come on, Sharon. Sharon, let's go over there. Let's look. Yeah, it's really him. Oh, is that really you? Yeah, it is. Oh, wait until we tell the girls back home. They're never going to believe this. They're never going to believe it. That guy in the blue shirt can't be bothered. He must be thinking about, hey, I'm going to walk down 7th Avenue the next day. What's the big deal? Broadway Joe is here. That woman back there, no big deal. This is a news conference. This is a real news conference, an NFL, AFL, Super Bowl news conference. There's Larry Fox is there, and Paul Zimmerman is there, and Jerry Green is there. And Joe is sitting there. He's got his New York Jets towel, just relaxing on the beach like other beachgoers. That's what he was doing. this picture would show up, and so Gertie didn't have to worry, or Trudy didn't have to worry about her friends really, or, this is prior to this, right? Where pictures are omnipresent. So she didn't have to worry about it because it's in the newspapers in New York the next day. These two women talking to Joe and that guy talking to Joe. And yeah, it's really Joe. And Joe told them we're going to win. Kept telling everybody we're going to win. The New York Jets-Baltimore Colts game is the turning point. Joe Namath guarantees the Jets will win. He delivers. Jets won 16-7. But because of Namath and his boast, and the name change to Super Bowl, this being Super Bowl III with the Roman numerals, the Super Bowl begins on the road to take on a new life, which you experience today. If you were in Miami that day and you wanted to buy tickets to that game, you could buy tickets up until the 4 o'clock kickoff. There was a flimsy pregame show featuring a marching band. The Apollo 8 astronauts, Frank Borman, William Anders, and Jim Lovell, they were there leading the crowd in a rousing rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. The national anthem was performed by a trumpet player from Washington, member of the Washington Symphony, Lloyd Geisler. And the halftime show, Florida A&M University Marching Band performing the halftime show. No grading the halftime show, no grading the commercials, really no tailgate parties either, or parties themselves. It was in January. It was no big deal. It was just another football game until Joe Namath changed all that. Again, history is written by the winners, not the losers. So Lou Michaels, he loses in the bar to Namath. They lose on the football field, him and his teammates, the Baltimore Colts. And there's one more area that Lou Michaels loses in. See, he and his brother Walt, defensive coordinator of the New York Jets, make a bet. And the bet is this. The base is $8,000. Loser gets $8,000. Winner gets $13,000. The winner would put up $5,000 or would take $5,000 out and go to the church in Swayersville, Pennsylvania, where the Michaels grew up, and give them $5,000, or give the padre, as they said, the padre at the church $5,000 to fix up the place, because they had gone there in the 1950s. Well, Walt was real quick to get back to Swayersville. He put up all kind of banners, New York Jets, world champions, blah, 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 blah. And Lou Michaels says he was correct in doing that. But where he wasn't correct was he didn't give that $5,000 to the padre. And Lou Michaels paid that $5,000. So instead of getting $8,000, he's down to $3,000. And the brothers had a fallout after that because Walt refused to pay the $5,000. Jets victory, arguably the most important win in NFL history. But the American Football League, on par with the established league, the NFL suddenly had a hot property, the Super Bowl. Would go on to become a quasi-national holiday and is the most watched TV event of the year. Not in the India-Pakistan cricket class, because an India-Pakistan cricket game will draw 600 million people. This won about 140 million people in front of the TV. January 5th was the key day. Lou Michaels had no idea that chance barroom showdown with Joe Namath would lay the foundation in turning the Super Bowl into a national obsession. That's Pat Mahomes. He won the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs last year. And Andy Reid. That's the Vince Lombardi Trophy. NFL Super Bowl 54, AFC versus NFC, given to Andy Reid. The Lombardi Trophy. Lombardi never won the Super Bowl, nor did he win the Lombardi Trophy. He won the AFL NFL World Championship game, and he won the Tiffany Trophy. He died in 1970, and the league named the Super Bowl trophy after the Green Bay and Washington coach. What you might not know about Vince Lombardi was that he was a civil rights pioneer. He thought that he was passed over for becoming a coach in the National Football League because he was Sicilian. He had a dark complexion. He was once asked to leave a restaurant because he was mistaken for an African American. He brought Emlyn Tunnell to Green Bay, the former New York Giants defensive back, in 1959 to desegregate Green Bay. By 1967, Lombardi shattered the NFL quota. He had 13 black athletes, including all-pros Willie Davis, Willie Wood, Dave Robinson, Herb Adderley, and Bob Jeter. He had gay players on his teams in Green Bay and Washington, and he told his players, lay off, I don't want to hear anything. Lombardi's brother, who was a priest, was gay. Now, as far as the parties go, there's the Queen Mary, and in 1973, that is where the party starts. I speak on cruise ships when cruise ships go, and behind there is a Princess cruise ship that I was speaking on, and I decided, hey, you know what, we're on Princess here. We could get on this thing for nothing, and we could take a look inside the Queen Mary. And we did, which is a floating hotel, or not a floating hotel. It's a hotel in water in Long Beach. The Super Bowl takes on a new personality, Super Bowl VII, a party on the Queen Mary in Long Beach, California, and it becomes the social event in Southern California in January of 1973. Other people hear about it and say, if they could have a party, why can't we? The parties start, and yeah, it's party time. And I worked with that guy for 15 years, John Madden, part-time on a radio show. That's at Sync Sound in Manhattan back in I think it's 1997 or 1998. No, it's 1997. And that's me on the left, John Madden in the middle, and Dennis Steele, who's part of our show. Dennis said that he loved you, man. He loved you. I said, how do you know? He said he used to call you F in Weiner. And that was a sign of endearment. That was a sign of endearment. Anyway, hey, we're going to talk about food now because John's there. And by the way, in those silver little things, John was drinking his diet Pepsi. That's what he drank, diet Pepsi, water, and the studio had to be at 58 degrees. 58 degrees. He was comfortable at 58 degrees. Anyway, so it's party time, right? And John had to try ducking for Thanksgiving, always talked about food with the telestrator and all this and all that. So let's talk about this. Hey, you got your hamburgers there, you got your wings there, and you got your dogs there, and you got your chips there, and you got your cake there, and then let's see, behind there you got pretzels back there, and oh, good, you got the ketchup there, you got the mustard there. Where's the white bread? Well, if you don't have white bread, I'll take the roll so I can have a mustard and ketchup sandwich. Yeah, he liked mustard and ketchup sandwiches. I could verify that. So it's party time. And that's what the Super Bowl is all about these days. Party, party, party. Every community in America is touched by the Super Bowl, as stores have big screen TV sales, or supermarkets have super sales. And the Beer Institute pointed out to me one day, Lori Levy, just how big a party day it is. You notice when you go to supermarkets, it will never say Super Bowls unless it's a partner, a marketing partner of the NFL, whether it's a beer partner or all. They could use Super Bowl. Super Bowls, the supermarkets cannot use Super Bowl as part of their marketing. The NFL has copyrighted Super Bowl. They could not copyright the big game. It's the second biggest food consumption of day of the year behind Thanksgiving. Hey, those TVs. Hey, it's got to be big, man. And you get your big TV those days. I'm doing this Madden style. According to the National Electronics Dealers Association, sales of large screen TVs increased 500% during Super Bowl week without COVID, because the event increases demand for television sets to watch the big game. Beer here. Lori Levy of the Beer Institute. The Beer Institute has data that suggests the Super Bowl, depending on the year, is one of the 7 biggest sales days of the year, only behind Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Eve, and the 4th of July. Now, newspapers can't say Super Bowl sections because it's journalism. And because it's journalism, they could use the name Super Bowl. So they do have special Super Bowl sections. The Super Bowl is a moneymaker for supermarkets, department stores. Well, there's only Walmart and Target, and basically those are the big 2 these days. Bars, snack food makers, breweries, restaurants. It's also the springboard for companies to start their annual TV, radio, and print advertising campaigns every February. Now, I can't do this for 2021 because it's COVID, so this is going to have to stand from last year. The average cost of a ticket to the past 5 Super Bowls, $5,706. $5.6 million, the average cost for a 30-second commercial during Super Bowl 54. Probably be the same this year, up from 107% since 2008. Now we get into the Madden category. Man, hey, 1.4 billion chicken wings will be eaten during Super Bowl weekend. At least 11.2 million pounds of chips, 11 million pounds of guacamole, 10 million pounds of ribs. 1 in 2 people say they would sacrifice their vacation days for 1 year to watch their team win the Super Bowl. I think if the Jets would win the Super Bowl, some people would say, take all my vacation days away. I don't care. More than 1 in 3 would give up their annual bonuses. 22 million last year. It's going to be more this year because there are more states that are in betting than last year that have legalized sports betting. And I think it's going to expand in New York State as well. 22.7 million last year adults were likely to bet on the Super Bowl, legally wagering $325 million. It's got to go up because there are a lot more states involved this year. Joe Namath was a star. He did Noxzema commercial with Farrah Fawcett, made movies with Raquel Welch, and did a pantyhose commercial. Yes, he did a pantyhose commercial. He also starred on the show, TV show with Dick Shack, but he did a pantyhose commercial for Hanes. And I was doing this talk 2 years ago, and there was a woman saying, how come we can't see his legs? I said, do you want to see them today? You probably don't with all the knee operations and knee replacements. Well, how about from then? Well, there you go. There you go. There's his legs. So anyway, he was selling pantyhose among other things, and he's still out there. He's still out there selling things. There you go. Medicare. I just saw this on TV about 2 hours ago, and he's telling you that, hey, you could even get dental care and eyeglasses and hearing aids. Just call that number. Joe is going to be 78 years old in May, and he is now pitching Medicare. Jimmy Walsh has him still working. Jimmy Walsh has been his agent since 1964, and he made Joe an awful, awful, awful lot of money. The Super Bowl commercials, the actual game, begins to take second place as a news event as the NFL attempts to draw non-football fans to the TV, and rating commercials becomes a major part of the entertainment package. This one down the road from me, this stadium was just knocked down last year. It's being, there's going to be a new stadium put up instead. And this is the kid with the Coca-Cola, and Mean Joe Green is all beaten up and he's really upset. The kid offers him a Coca-Cola. It is still the gold standard of football commercials. That is the one, the Coca-Cola ad, 42 years later. 1984, some of the big time commercials of all time, the Sledgehammer Apple computer commercial, 1984, 1996, the Coke guy takes a Pepsi, 1998, Tabasco, the mosquito Tabasco sauce, also 1988, 3D Doritos, 2003, the Budweiser Clydesdales, although you could say that every year because they do the Clydesdale commercials. Reebok, which is a failed brand now. They're trying to bring back the Reebok brand to prominence. Terry Tate, Office Linebackers, 2003. And Betty White, who just celebrated a birthday. So I read, or she is 99 years old and she is in quarantine. She's been in quarantine for a year. 11 years ago, the Snickers commercial. The political problems, the Arizona problem. The NFL is a force. It is a major political force as well. The politics of the game. The NFL owners awarded Bill Bidwell and his Phoenix Cardinals franchise the 1993 Super Bowl in an attempt to boost sagging attendance in Tempe, Arizona, in March of 1990. And that would be the 93 game, but there was a problem. Arizona Governor Evan Meacham canceled the Martin Luther King holiday in 1986, a year after Ronald Reagan announced that there would be a new national holiday for the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Arizona, with their Governor Babbitt, initially signed on. He was a Democrat. The Republican Meacham canceled the holiday, and John McCain was one of his major backers. And McCain said that was one of the worst decisions he ever made, stripping Arizona of the holiday. Their thinking was there were too many federal holidays and it wasn't needed. Bidwell moved the team to Tempe, Arizona in 1988. So the NFL knew about this, but decided not to look the other way. Martin Luther King and the big game. The performer Stevie Wonder announced he would boycott performing in Arizona. Convention planners said, we're out of here, we're not coming to the state. The battle is on, and the NFL enlists in the battle in 1990. In 1989, the state legislature overrode Meacham and passed legislation to create a state holiday honoring King, but opponents got enough signatures on a petition to get voters to decide in the 1990 referendum whether or not to honor Martin Luther King. The NFL basically said this to Arizona voters. Pass it, you have the 93 Super Bowl and all the economic impact. Reject it, we're pulling the Super Bowl. They rejected the King holiday in 1990. NFL says, okay, we're going to do a do-over in 1992. You've lost this Super Bowl, Super Bowl 27. It's going to Pasadena, but there's another one, Super Bowl 30, in 1996. So if you pass this referendum, and you would have more voters out anyway, because it's a presidential year, Bush, Clinton, and Perot. If you pass this one, Tempe will get the 1996 game. Well, the measure passes, and Tempe is awarded the 1996 game about 4 months after at the next spring meeting for the NFL owners in March of 1993, the game. The anthem. How many of you remember watching the New York Giants, Buffalo Bills? That was the 1990 Super Bowl, Norwood wide right, and the Giants would win. That was the year that of the Iraqi war. After Iraq invaded Kuwait, this is a really tight, secure place in Tampa in 1991. How many of you remember the anthem, which is the anthem that all anthems today are measured by? And whether or not it was real or was it on tape? Is it real or on tape? Well, let's ask the expert, Jim Steig. Jim ran Super Bowls for the NFL for a long time. I've known Jim for a really long time. In early January, our coordinator, that's January 1991, our coordinator of Super Bowl pregame activities, Bob Best, produced the recording of the Florida Orchestra for national anthem producer Ricky Weiner. A week later, Weiner flew to Los Angeles to have Whitney record the vocal track. Amazingly, it was done in one take. One take. That was it. It was on tape. It wasn't live. She lip synced that. Here's another one. 2004. I bet you don't remember who played in this game. Well, who played in this game? Anybody? New England beat Carolina 32-29. I went to Ithaca College to give a talk about 6-7 weeks after the game. It was to a sports business management group. And this is a group that was going to go into sport. Wow, this group now, some of them are 37 years old. This is amazing when I think of that, 38. But anyway, I asked them who played the game. They couldn't remember. There was one guy who did, because he played offensive line in high school, and he watched the game because he wanted to watch the game. He remembered. Nobody else remembered. And that's what happens with Super Bowl. 3 weeks later, people like, who played? People remember this. Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson's costume malfunction at halftime of the 2004 game causes a political football and changes how TV and radio present programming. ABC showing of Saving Private Ryan, Easter night 2004 is impacted. After the incident, Michael Powell. Now, if you know anything about the FCC, the party in the White House has the power of the FCC. It's a 5-member panel, 3 and 2. That will switch next week with Biden to 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans. George W. Bush is the president here. Michael Powell, Colin Powell's son, is the chairman of the FCC, and they're looking at obscenity and fines, a whole bunch of other things. By October of 2004, Powell and his FCC commissioners started thinking whether or not a hockey game that features fights was suitable between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. to be on TV, forgetting the fact there's a fight on every play in a football game. In fact, there's more than one. There's at least 5 if you watch the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman or a linebacker. The FCC acts. Justin Timberlake grabbed Jackson in the dance routine, accidentally forcing her dress to open, which revealed one of her breasts. That 9/16 of a second left an impression. 9/16 of a second, which nobody saw. What happened? Well, social media. In those days, AOL Instant Messenger, Yahoo Messenger, and whatever Hotmail had. And people started talking to one another. Hey, did you see what happened? What happened? Did you see when she went like that? Did you see what happened? No, what happened? If you have TiVo, you'll see what happened. Just slow it down, slow it down, slow it down, slow it down. Hey, there it is. There it is. That's the 9/16 of a second in one frame. Well, it catches on like wildfire on the internet. This is before Facebook and Twitter. This is AOL, which should have become Facebook, but didn't. And people are beginning to talk about it. And CBS and Viacom, the parent company of CBS, and MTV, which produced the halftime show, are beginning to get roasted in the cultural wars. Politicians derided CBS and CBS's MTV unit, which produced the halftime show. Within 15 hours, politicians gathered on the steps of the Capitol in Washington, pointing fingers at Jackson, not at Timberlake, at Jackson and CBS for promoting something immoral. The hammer would come down on CBS. The Republican-led Federal Communications Commission got involved, fined Viacom CBS $550,000, changed indecency rules. Viacom and CBS fought the fines for 7 years and would finally win and never paid the fines. Saving Private Ryan. Steven Spielberg film, starring Tom Hanks, Saving Private Ryan, Edward Burns, Matt Damon, Tom Sizemore. The mission is a man. Saving Private Ryan was on TV before 2004. The FCC decided to raise the amount stations and networks could be docked for what was termed questionable images and dirty words. 2004 television stations, mostly in the South in the United States, were scared off by the prospects of fines. 66 ABC TV affiliates didn't show the movie Saving Private Ryan because of foul language concerns. They didn't want to risk a fine. Saving Private Ryan had won 5 Academy Awards following its release in 1998. Had been on ABC in 2001 and 2002. Military groups were furious with the stations. Disney ABC offered to pay the fines of the 66 stations if the FCC decided to dock them. The FCC got one complaint about the movie in 2001-2002. Foul language. That was it. So, you know what? Let's find a safe act. Jacksonville, 2005, Paul McCartney. Oh, wait a minute. Wasn't he busted for pot in Japan in 1980? Had to spend 9 days in jail. In fact, his bandmates, George Harrison, he was arrested for pot. John Lennon, also arrested for pot. Ringo Starr had come out by this time talking about he had a bad alcohol problem. But he was considered safe act. There's Mick, there's Ron Wood, Rolling Stones, and there's Keith. Need I say any more about Keith Richards? Safe act. The Who. 2 of the 4 members of the original cast of The Who in the 1960s, Roger Daughtry is there singing. Pete Townsend is there, but Keith Moon isn't, the drummer, replaced by Zach Starkey, Ringo Starr's son, because Keith Moon died from a drug overdose of prescription drugs in 1978. And John Entwistle, the bass player, died from a cocaine overdose. They were all safe. Mariah Carey, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, Justin Timberlake, Beyonce, Janet Jackson, McCartney, The Stones, The Who, Whitney Houston, Lady Gaga, and I did this talk last night in Glen Rock, New Jersey, and I get scolded because I forgot the boss, Bruce Springsteen, in New Jersey. You shouldn't be doing that in New Jersey, but I did. So there's my mea culpa. Have performed during the event's pregame, singing the national anthem, or part of the festivities and halftime shows. Tampa gets the Super Bowl, COVID permitting, on February 7th, 2021. I don't know if there's going to be anybody in the stands. The NFL is talking about having first responders watching the game. Inglewood, California gets it in 2022. Glendale, Arizona in 2023. And you could change that 4 to 5. New Orleans is going to get the Super Bowl probably in 2025, because even the NFL knows there is no way you can compete with Mardi Gras in New Orleans. And in 2024, Mardi Gras and the Super Bowl overlap, and it just won't work. It is not going to work, because football is merely a game. The Mardi Gras is life in New Orleans. And there's my wife in the long gone Orange Bowl. Long gone, long departed, now the home of the Miami Marlins. And the Marlins stadium is on those grounds, and she's in the end zone when they allowed you on the field in 1982 in Miami. The NFL stopped putting the game out for bid, selects communities after a community shows interest. They make the deal. They don't want any losing bid people unhappy. The game is now played in February. Why? It's one of the 3 major rating periods for the networks, and the network that gets the Super Bowl wins the rating sweep. And the NFL threw in the sweetener this year. I don't know if they're going to do it next year or not, but they're allowing 2 extra minutes of commercials for the games this weekend and next weekend leading into the Super Bowl, so networks can make some more money to recoup probably some of the losses that they got by not having preseason games, etc. The NFL claims it will attempt to globalize the Super Bowl. London, UK is a possibility. The problem there is that Congress created the Super Bowl and probably would not be too happy if the game's played outside of the United States. The NFL has embraced Las Vegas after years of being against legalized gambling. Las Vegas may get that 2024 Super Bowl that right now New Orleans has, but won't have because of Mardi Gras. Some of the expenses of the Super Bowl 2017, Channel 13 in Houston did a little survey to see if there really is a $300 million economic impact that the NFL claims the game has. It's probably closer to 30 million than 10 million. I'll explain that in a couple minutes. But 2017, Channel 13 raised the question about how much the Super Bowl would cost the city, how much public funding was going for a week-long party inside the city, which includes Fan Fest and all that stuff. The answer to Channel 13 News, $26 million from Harris County and Texas taxpayers. Arizona had the Super Bowl in 2015. Jerry Wires was and still is the mayor of Glendale. And in 2014, he talked about the last Super Bowl in 2008 in Glendale. He told an interviewer from ESPN, the magazine, "I totally believe we will lose money on the 2015 game." Wires claimed Glendale lost $1 million on the 2008 game, although Arizona Cardinals owner Michael Bidwell countered, "Hey, you got $13 million free advertising." I don't know how you pay, let's say, a library in Glendale. How many books could you buy with $13 million of air? And that's what it was, $13 million of air. So I don't think you could buy any books with $13 million of air, or DVDs and other library fare, or buy computer, whatever. Glendale's numbers backed up Wires, who was not the city's mayor in 2008. Glendale spent $3 million on services for the game and got back slightly $1 million in taxes. So that $13 million got nowhere. The taxes came from hotels, motels, restaurants, car rental agencies. Indianapolis, they had the game about 8 years ago, and they lost $1 million on the day of the game. But they got free publicity. You buy a lot with money made out of air, right? Fans do come with money. Even this guy, he came with money to the Super Bowl. Some Super Bowl goers, and this is why you could start looking at that $300 million, $400 million economic impact survey and say, hey, it could be bogus. Super Bowl goers do spend money at hotels and motels and car rental agencies. But if those places are not locally owned, all those Super Bowl rate hikes for cars and hotel rooms and motel rooms, well, they don't stay in the host city. They go back to the home office, which is generally somewhere else. The money goes somewhere else. And it's the same thing with chain restaurants. Oh, yeah, some people, taxi drivers, people clean hotel, motel rooms, parking lot attendants, waiters, and waitresses may get some more tip money, but a good chunk of Super Bowl spending does not go to non-hospitality businesses. Here's an example last year in South Florida. How many people went to the Super Bowl who said, you know, I need to go down to Miami Beach area. I need to go to Neiman Marcus because I got to buy a bag. It's not happening. It's just not happening. Most of the spending is from local people in terms of FanFest and those things. But they're not going to Neiman Marcus. That's not happening. State officials estimated the state of Minnesota lost $9 million in taxes because of tax breaks given to the NFL. Local communities lost $2 million in taxes that would be Minneapolis for the most part because of perks. Atlanta 2019, hotel rooms for 8 nights for each participating team, including 150 standard rooms, 2 presidential suites, because the owners have to stay somewhere, and 5 other suites were paid by the bid committee, not the NFL. Oh, you know what? The NFL doesn't pay use for the stadium. They don't pay rent for the stadium. No. You should be grateful that they're there. Assignment of 10 security officers to each team hotel during the day, 5 at night. Police escorts for team owners to go to and from the game. You know what? Hey, look, it's good to be the king, as Mel Brooks once said. Peachtree Street, Peachtree Place, Atlanta. Approximately 10,000 parking spaces for the Atlanta game. Well, you know, the NFL, yeah, you could collect the money for the space and we're going to jack up the tickets. Oh, by the way, prices goes to us. Come on, we'll take it. A wide range of lesser items, including installing up to 2,000 banners on street poles, setting up a social media monitoring response center, bid committee. In Atlanta, you can do a whole bunch of things. You don't have to go to a football game. You could go to the Martin Luther King Center. You can do that. And you could go through history, taking a Freedom Rider trip or walking through history. You can go to Coca-Cola. You go to CNN. There are things to do in Atlanta, down where the Olympic Park is in downtown Atlanta. The NFL in 2019 will retain all ticket revenue sales. So not only are you giving them the building for nothing, but they're taking all of the money. Even the host committee has to buy its tickets, up to 750 of them at face value. Now, in 2019, the Georgia State Legislature gave a $10 million sales tax exemption on Super Bowl tickets. We get that too. Give it to us. The Atlanta Bid Committee agreed to an NFL requirement that the host city reimburse the league and its teams for any other state or local taxes they pay in connection with the Super Bowl. Enhancements include a $2 million contribution for use towards certain NFL expenses related for a game. Maybe $1 million if the weather isn't good and everything has to go indoors. Well, and then for people like me, 2,000 media members, a party, $375,000. Doesn't quite match a party I went to at the St. Regis Hotel for the Prime Minister of Malaysia and his First Lady. That was $1 million back in 2010. Greatest party I ever went to. And also a pledge to provide NFL owners with VIP private airport accommodations. Miami area had the Super Bowl last year. It wasn't in Miami. It was up the road in Broward County. Miami-Dade County taxpayers gave Miami Dolphins owner, Stephen Ross, $4 million for snagging the 2020 Super Bowl. He worked out a deal. He renovated his stadium using his own money. But if he snagged big events, he got money from the government. There was a $10 million cost for game expense, including police protection, other services. The NFL upgraded 2 parks. They were nice guys. Oh, the upgrade, $3 million. The NFL contribution, $850,000. And that is what the Super Bowl is all about. It's all about money. The Super Bowl, created out of the ashes of the New Orleans 1965 American Football League boycott, took an act of Congress to create the American Football League, National Football League, as one entity. The first fruit from that was the Super Bowl, called the World Championship game, back in 1967. And it would be Joe Namath. Howard Cosell once asked me, "Why is Joe Namath in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?" And I said, simple, he won one game, but he won the most important game. Because not only did Joe Namath change football history, but he also changed American culture. Now, that might have eventually come, but Namath laid the foundation to change culture to where we have a quasi-national holiday called the Super Bowl. And there is my man, John, and my wife. I'll tell you this quick story. This is 1999 at the Arizona Biltmore, John Madden. And my wife wanted to get this picture signed. And I sent it to, because I wasn't seeing John for a while, sent it to one of my cohorts on the radio show, the executive producer, Gary Bridges. And Gary shows it to John. And John says, "What is Weiner's wife?" I didn't have a first name. By the way, I never had a first name with John. It's always Weiner. Who put Weiner's wife's face? Who put Weiner's wife's head on Monica Lewinsky? That's Monica Lewinsky, because this is after the impeachment and all that. And Gary says, "John, put on your glasses. It's Weiner's wife." He initially thought it was Monica Lewinsky, and then who put Weiner's wife's head on Monica Lewinsky? And then he realized it was my wife. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jonathan. And thank you, everybody who is here and who put up with this for a while.
Thank you, Evan. I appreciate you being here with us.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and open that up and see if anyone has any.
Okay, I am going to take down the screen share here. And there we go. I see Ira there. Eva. How you doing, Ira? How are we doing over at YouTube?
I haven't looked at that.
Okay.
But I know it's been running.
Hello, YouTube, if you're out there. So any questions or
Ira,
comments?
did you have a question?
No, but I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Ira. Where are you from?
Kiamisha Lake.
Kiamisha Lake. You always been there?
Originally the Bronx.
Originally the Bronx. So
Right, by the Yankee Stadium.
Oh, okay. So because you didn't sound like you were from Kiamisha Lake. I heard the accent. Heard the accent. Anybody else? Well, thank you, Ira, and thank you, Jonathan. And I see Eva coming up on relaxing on her chair. Relaxing on a chair, just laid out like Joe Namath, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some of the stories from the Super Bowl. So thank you, Jonathan. Anything else before I get out of here and drink some water, since this is the second talk of the day that I've done? I did one in Somerset County, New Jersey earlier today. Anybody else? Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Ava. You got to put on your microphone.
Let me see if I can get her unmuted.
Thank
There we
you.
Thank you, Ava. Eva. I'm sorry, Eva. So, okay. Well, I
right.
want to thank everybody. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you to the library for inviting me. Hopefully, we could do this again sometime in the spring. Yeah, I got plenty of talk, so plenty of talk. So, and a lot of this stuff, of course, happened in the 1960s. So, again, thank you, Jonathan. My name is Evan Weiner. Thank you, Ira. Thank you, Eva. And let's see who else is in the room. Thank you, Tally, and thank you, Paul's iPad, and thank you for everybody who also watched live on YouTube, which I watch live on YouTube, I guess. And we'll be talking to you. Have a good night. Stay safe. Get your vaccine, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.